This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Shirts for the Scene. Head over to thepopgoproject.com and you can purchase your favorite band t-shirt today. We are raising money for the local artist in northeastern Pennsylvania whose income was drastically affected by COVID-19 in 2020. And although we're in a new year, bands will continue to struggle to perform like they once did. So grab a shirt, support a band. The proceeds of each sale go right to the bands whose shirt you are buying. Once again, head over to thepopgoproject.com and grab your shirt today. Shirts for the Scene is made possible by Axelrad Screen Printing. Visit them today at axelradarmy.com. My guest today was once a trader on Wall Street before giving it all up to focus on music. He just released a 4-song EP called My Name Is Not Kaiser in September of last year, followed up by a new single called -9 just last week. We talked about the strategy behind releasing this project, streaming and playlists on Spotify, the pros and cons of social media, what the future holds, and more. It was such a pleasure putting a human face to his animated online presence. Welcome to the show, Telco. Live. What's up?
Yo, what's going on? Nice to meet you.
Not much. Yeah, nice to meet you too, man. Kinda in this digital age.
Yeah, as close as we get.
Yeah. How are things?
It's going good. I flew down to Florida with my fiance. She's from Florida, so I'm actually down here for a couple of weeks. We got out of the snow and everything like that, so I posted up here for a couple of weeks. So it's nice. It's like 70 degrees walking outside with short sleeves. So,
how was traveling?
Honestly, we were saying I felt more in danger at Wegmans on a Sunday than I do flying on a plane. It's like, it's not that bad. I mean, everybody has their masks on and stuff like that, but you go to a grocery store nowadays, it's like jam packed and people are on top of you and stuff like that. But flying was not that scary, to be honest. But Florida's pretty crazy. It's wide open here. Like, there are no rules and places are packed.
Really? Now,
that's crazy.
Does that concern you?
It would if I was going out, but my parents have had some health issues. So I've been like super, super locked in since this all went down. So other than flying here, which obviously doesn't put my parents at risk, but, yeah, I've been like super careful. But if I was like somebody at risk and I was here in Florida, it's crazy. I would be nervous.
That's what I hear. I hear like Florida is crazy. I hear Texas is wild. Just certain parts of the world, they just don't give a shit. Which I guess, I mean, it's cool, and it's like, it's hard. It's such a hard thing to navigate, right? Because like, it's out there, it exists, but like, how much of it is the media, making it worse than it is? If that's the case, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not bad, because obviously I trust the people who tell us that, cases are up and people are dying and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to sit here and say like I don't believe it. But some people out there, they just think that this is not real.
Yeah, and that was the weird thing. We were driving. We were going to go to the beach, and we got to the beach and it was jam packed, so we didn't go. And we were driving past all these people, and the bars were packed, restaurants were packed, and I was like, I don't know if I dislike these people. I don't know if I'm jealous of these people. Like, I don't know how to feel about anybody anymore, because it's become such a political thing. That's hard to tell how I feel about any of it. So I'm pumped that we're into 2021 now. Like, seeing on my timeline, people getting vaccinated, people I know getting vaccinated. And it's kind of like, you can feel that weight of 2020 kind of at least starting to maybe come off a little bit. So,
right.
I don't know. We'll see.
I hope so, man. As far as the virus is concerned, I feel like, okay, yeah, we're making progress. But when that's happening, the rest of the world is falling apart, it seems. The incident that just happened last week with the Capitol, and, I don't want to make this a political discussion by any means, and we'll get into the fun stuff. But I mean, I heard that something was happening, and I, went online and I looked and I saw visuals of what was happening, and I got sick to my stomach. And I don't typically get like that, but I saw that and I was just like, wow, this is crazy.
Well, as you know, obviously with music, it's like half of like 20% of it is the music and 80% of it's marketing, right? So when we were getting ready to put out the new single, we were like, we're going to wait till 2021. People will be excited. It's a new year. Things are going to be good. Vaccinations will be start rolling out. It's an uplifting song. And 2 days before we put it out, all this stuff went on with the Capitol. And I was like, obviously we're not a big band like that. We have to change our schedule based on these things. But I was like, how am I supposed to? I thought we would at least get a week of solid feel goodness of 2021 before all the crap of 2022 just spilled over. And I'm sitting there, I was watching it. I was like, I don't even know if I can put out something uplifting now because it just feels out of touch, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was caught in this place where I was like, either this is going to be a good way to escape from that, or it's going to be wildly out of touch. But it's like every day you flip on the news or it's crazy. You can't have a conversation with anybody anymore, you know? No. And everybody I know is calm, rational, sensible people. But the second you log in online, everybody's crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is. I always say the internet, specifically social media, is like a blessing and a curse because it gives everyone a voice that has an opinion. And I always feel like the uninformed like speak the loudest.
Yeah,
if that makes sense, right? But I mean, not that everyone should have an opinion, but it just facts are facts. And
the craziest 5% of each side get all the attention. And then the silent 90% in the middle, they're the people who suffer. You know what I mean?
You're right.
And that's why podcasting and free-form discussion and stuff, I feel like is the only antidote for that right now, because it's the only time people are having nuanced conversation. And you see that in the music world all the time. It's very hard to have any sort of nuanced opinion on anything. You have to be black or white. And anytime someone wades into that, like, no man's land of some sort of nuance or complicated subject, they just get annihilated or they get canceled or whatever it is, you know. Right. It's that's why I like podcasts like this. It's the only way that you can get out who you really are without it being cut down into little bite-sized things that get you in trouble.
Well, don't say that, because people could cut this up if they wanted to.
True.
Thankfully, I have like 5 listeners, so that won't happen here. So speak freely.
you're safe. We'll have 10.
You're safe. You're safe here. But so should I call you Michael?
Yeah, please.
All right, Michael. Michael started a project last year. Well, I shouldn't say started. I don't know when you started it, but you released music under the name Telco last year. And you got me your music that I played on the radio when I had a radio show fairly early. And it was weird because you reached out to me, and your music is stuff that I haven't heard locally. And when I say locally, I mean northeastern Pennsylvania. It was definitely different from everything else that was, kind of being created. So, was that like, did you come into, this project as, wanting to create that, or is this your style? Like, this is a place, a chance for you to kind of just talk about, telco in general and kind of how it started and where you're going.
Yeah. Well, first of all, before I get into that, I was going to say, when you first played that song, because we sent it to you before it was even out officially streaming. And at the time, it was when quarantine was just going down. And I remember me and my fiance, we were quarantining in the Poconos, trying not to get my parents sick. And you played it on the radio for the first time, and we ran out to the car, and like, I had all my friends listen. It was for me, it was like the biggest moment in the world was hearing my song on the radio for the first time. So I wanted to thank you in person for that, because that was huge. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
But in terms of,
I'm sorry. I'm just sorry I couldn't keep playing your new stuff. We'll get into that too. But
yeah, well, this is great too. So in terms of the project itself, it evolved over a long period of time. I started writing in college, and then I did it sort of secretly. No one knew I was really even into music or that I was practicing singing. I used to do it anytime my parents would leave the house. I would just like lock the doors and stuff like that. I'd practice singing, and then as soon as they would come home, I'd see them in the driveway. I'd like go sit on the couch, pretend like I wasn't doing anything. So I did all of it kind of in secret because I wasn't very good. And so I started putting together this music. And then finally, when I was in college, I said to my parents, I was like, oh, I want to do music for a living. and I've been practicing behind closed doors for years now. And they were, needless to say, they were like shell shocked. And they told me I had to go to college anyway and finish out college. So I ended up getting my finance degree and going working as a trader on Wall Street for 3 years. And I used that. I thought, okay, I can either drop out and get a job waiting tables and try and make music that way, or I could go get a great job and use the money that I'm making from that career and put it into my music and fund myself instead of trying to get a record label to fund me or something like that. So all of what became telco happened when I was out. I was living in New Jersey and working as a trader, and it sort of just came together from my apartment at the time. And I was trying to make music that, like at the beginning of this conversation, was a little nuanced, right? Because I used to always think a lot of the stuff that you hear on the radio nowadays, it's very black and white in the same way. It's like a breakup song where they're smashing someone's car and saying all nasty things about it, or it's a love song where it's like everything is amazing. And as any like normal human being knows, it's always somewhere in the middle of those two things. But no one really tends to write music about those in between sort of feelings. So that was kind of what I wanted telco to be. So I wanted to be something that was a little bit in the gray area of where people were writing music. And so the first song that we put out was Say Hello, which was the one that I sent to you. And that was exactly supposed to be exactly that. It switches between like this minor key verse and this major key chorus. And some of it's super depressing, some of it's somewhat optimistic. And it's supposed to sort of be an accurate representation of what being in relationships is actually like. So tried to carry that forth with the EP and sort of have that same nuance in the other songs as well. And that was kind of my vision, and nuance and authenticity were the only two things that were constant in the EP in terms of the genre or what the music sounded like. You know, I'll make any kind of music that I feel like it, as long as it feels authentic to that sort of mission. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And for those of you listening, I've compared it, and I every time I compare, people I talk to other artists, I always preface it with, I hate doing this because the last thing I would want to do is say, hey, you sound like XYZ. And you're like, shit, I hate that band.
It's always someone who has more followers than me. So I'm happy with it.
Oh, well, yeah. So I told you this too. I like the style and even a little bit of the vocals kind of reminds me of The Fray. And I'm still there's another band that there's hints of, and I can't think of it. I'm still trying to. I've been trying to think of it for 8 months now, but I just think it's great. It's great music.
Thank you.
And I haven't really dug into the lyrics as far as what the songs are about, as much as I have just kind of digging the sound of it. But
yeah. Well, that was something that is interesting. I always think about lyrics, and I think of it. I always go back and forth because sometimes I like very cryptic lyrics, like a lot of my favorite artists, like Bon Iver or something like that. They have very cryptic lyrics. And then some of my favorite songs are ones that are just brutally, brutally honest. And so like lyrics for me have always been kind of like trying to balance those two between being somewhat figurative and artistic, and then also just saying what you mean, because sometimes you can write, a whole poem about something, but if you just come out and say it, it's so much easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also a lot of artists say, they don't want people to know what the song is about, because they want the listener to just kind of, interpret it how they want to. So do you find that to be on par with your stuff?
Yeah. For the most part, I try not to reveal like all of what goes in behind the song, because I know for me personally, like my favorite music was the kind that I could project my own story onto the music, which is why I chose telco, right? Because if I came out as Michael Gilbride, the artist, then people are going to go, these songs are all about Michael Gilbride and his relationship and his whatever. But if you have some sort of intermediation between those things and you go by telco instead, this project name, suddenly people are projecting their life stories onto these songs, right?
Sure.
And so that was the whole reason I picked a project title instead of my name, even though it is a solo project, was so that it would give room for people to put themselves into the songs, you know, because I didn't want it to be songs about my experiences. I wanted it to be about experiences, and then they can insert themselves into it.
That's really interesting. I don't know if I ever thought of it that way before, but that's really great. Um, and I think you've done a lot to, keep yourself out of it too, with the animation and, the videos. It's never you. It's
Yeah.
this, and is telco anything specific, or it's just kind of a name?
No, it was a name I saw on a door somewhere, and I was just like, this is going to be my name now. And it's funny because it's another thing I kind of struggle with, which is like, if you try and pick words and try and get the exact words to say how you're feeling, it can be very difficult. So sometimes it's easier to pick a word that no one has any sort of association with and just say, this word now means this, right? Like, no one has association with the word telco other than telecommunications in the finance industry or something like that, right? So if I just say, oh, this means my band now, people are like, all right, cool, whatever. You know what I mean? But if you try and reassociate something that people are already familiar with as your band name, no one's going to buy it. So I just sort of adopted it. It was sort of the same thing with the title to the new single, -9, was like just something I had in my voice notes that I decided to keep. And it's like -9 now means this song. And people are like, whatever, I buy it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's fascinating, and I had like a little bit of like a Gorillas vibe in the animation that you created, and kind of, like I said, you'd never really exposed yourself. And one thing I did notice, or I saw on social media, as much as you've kind of hidden behind the name, and maybe hide is not the right word to use, because you're not hiding behind the name. Obviously, it's a well thought out thing, and why you named it that. But I saw that you released your cell phone number.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that work out?
So I'll preface it by saying you would be shocked how kind people are. Like, I've got nothing but extremely positive, nice text messages from people. I was very concerned what was going to happen when that happened, because it is my legit phone number. Like, it's I have two phones now, and it literally is the phone that's in my pocket. So that was weird. But when we were putting together the project, we were like, I didn't want my face to be the focus of the project. I don't want to have to be taking selfies every day and being like, trying to promote my project that way. Like I said, I wanted it to be a project, and I wanted people to insert themselves into the music. So I wanted there to be that sort of intermediation between me and the listener, right? But at the same time, I didn't want to come off as like a douchebag, and be like, I'm trying to keep everybody at a distance. And like, I didn't want to come off as some artistic, artsy fartsy, like hotshot kind of guy either. So when I was talking about with my manager, who's just my best friend, we're like an indie band through and through. He's just my best friend. And we were talking about it. And we were like, what if we're like a little bit distant in the way that we present ourselves, but in the way we communicate with our listeners, we're as authentic as you can possibly be, right? And we were like, maybe that's a way to let people know that we're in the room, we're engaging with you, we appreciate everybody who listens to our music, but I'm not going to be the face of everything that you see. So we released our phone number, and I've been having conversations with people all the time. And we did this marketing campaign where we were sending free merch out to people. So we would send them stickers, and I would write them a handwritten letter, and all they did was subscribe to our newsletter. So things like that, where it's like, suddenly, no, they're not seeing my face all the time. And yeah, there's a bunch of artwork in between me and the listener. But at the same time, they have me in their contacts in their phone, and they also have a handwritten letter from me in their room. So you're creating fans in a different way than if I was just posting selfies of myself all the time, because I'm not attractive enough to do that.
I love it. And you're talking to a guy who put his stupid face on his.
That is a great logo. That thing is beautiful. I was just looking at that the other day. I love it.
Shout out to Keith Perks, who did that for me.
Beautiful.
Well, it's one of those things, like, not to come off you, but when I was creating this whole thing, I didn't want to use my name, and I didn't want to use my face. But when I was talking to people, they're like, people know who you are. And not because, and that's what I was afraid of. Like, I don't want to sound pretentious. I don't want to sound like this egotistical maniac. Like, I don't want to do that. But people know who you are. People like you, they respect you. Like, you have to use your name. And I'm like, all right, okay, all right, we'll do the name. That's fine. And I don't know how like the face came to be. like I said, none of it was planned. You have a well thought out plan about this project.
It all came together.
I didn't.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing for you. Like using your name comes off as authentic because you're having these real conversations, right? It would be egotistical if you tried to come up with something that wasn't you, right?
Right.
But for me, I'm in the opposite position where it's like indie music specifically nowadays is very person centric, where it's like every indie musician is just plastering their Instagram with selfies and pictures of them, stories of them waking up out of bed and
right.
fiddling around on their guitar. It's very me centric. So it's the opposite in your situation where it's like by using your name, you're coming off as authentic. You know what I mean?
And that was the goal. I mean, I wanted to have, honest, genuine conversations.
Yeah.
We spoke earlier about Joe Rogan, and
if
I could be the Joe Rogan of NEPA, that'd be cool with me.
Dude, we're mutual fans. I'm a huge fan of him.
Yeah, he's awesome. Although I haven't really enjoyed his most recent guests, and that's probably because of COVID related, I'm sure. But just I don't know, it hasn't been doing it for me lately. But I have been able to like kind of go back into the archives, and since it's on Spotify now, he has all of them listed out, and everything's like from episode 1 till now. So I've kind of been consuming the older ones, which has been cool to kind of see how he's grown, from where he started to where he is today. But
and it's nice too. I mean, like you have it where it's like it feels like a conversation, and those are my favorite types of things. That's why for Telco we try and get I try and get on as many podcasts as I can, because I think having real conversations is the best way to get across any sort of like authenticity. But for you, like you can tell like it's free flowing, like we're just talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's the great way to get information out there nowadays. That's believable.
Thank you. Yeah, and I love your approach. Like it's kind of refreshing to kind of for you to have that thought out, as far as you have. Like I don't know that a lot of people think that way. Not saying they don't, but I mean, you're the first person I've talked to that kind of like has this, kind of prepared this way. It's really interesting to really think about and hear about.
Yeah, I think coming from a business world is a little different than like a lot of musicians. Yeah. Like I got my degree in finance. I went and worked, as a trader for 3 years. Like I knew that if I was going to leave that job specifically, which was an amazing job for me to have, I need to do this right, because I had no intentions on this flopping. You know what I mean? And so I knew that putting my music out there, even if it was a killer song, wasn't going to be enough. It needs to actually get in front of people. Right. And to do that, you have to have an understanding of how to market yourself, how to brand yourself. So we tried to get on that as early as we possibly could, which is why you heard from us before our stuff even came out, because we were trying to get that groundwork set so we can have a good debut.
And how has the response been so far?
It's been great. I mean, the EP release went great. We got up to we're up to 150,000 streams on Say Hello, which is wow. Great for, someone. The hard part was we had no momentum. No one knew who we were. We had never posted anything prior to the day the song got released. So we were really just starting to push the rock from completely stopped. And so trying to get momentum instantaneously was challenging. But thankfully, because of my job, I had resources to put into advertising, into, playlisting and things like that we were able to sort of get a really good jump from the start. And the challenge is now taking those streams and trying to get fans out of them and trying to get people who are coming back and engaging with you and would be willing to buy a ticket to your show, right? So, which is exactly why we're less focused on establishing credibility with like streams and blog write-ups and things like that. And we're now more focused on actually getting fans that will come out and support us, which is, by releasing the phone number and all these things, we're trying to get people and connect with them and get people who are actually going to make this sustainable for us in the long term.
Yeah, you mentioned, I started writing it down and I kind of got scribbly. Shoot. You said something that really was interesting. Streams. Shit.
Talk about blogs.
No, blogs, streams,
playlisting.
Oh, yes, that's it. Thank you. I feel like that's been, I wanted you to talk a little bit about that because I see a lot of bands, they'll share, hey, we just made it on, Joe Schmo's playlist, or, a local project here, Sleep Lore. Or maybe that wasn't really a playlist, but he made the top 10 of Alternative Press's bands to look out for in 2021. But I see a lot of bands that are really pushing, like, hey, we made this playlist, we made that playlist. And not that they made it on Spotify, but they got on, a bigger, well-known name playlist. How important is that in what you do and in the scene in general? Because I think that's kind of what I see a lot of people doing.
Yeah. Well, there's two big camps, right? There's the Spotify editorial playlists, and then there's everything else. There's the third-party playlist. So you and I can create a playlist on Spotify.
Right.
We could get 1,000 people to follow it, and then, people will be interested in coming on, getting added to your playlist because you have 1,000 followers, right? But the Spotify editorial playlists, those are the ones that are actually created by Spotify themselves. They vet all of the musicians that they bring onto their playlist, and then they're the ones that are very difficult to get on, and you can get a lot of streams from. And they're all legit streams, because that's a huge problem now with third-party playlists. Is you'll have a company, they'll hire a bunch of robots basically to stream a song. They'll get 40,000 fake followers, and then they'll stream your song with these robots, and people will rack up stats. But the thing is that they then get punished by Spotify, because Spotify knows their bot streams.
Right.
So if you saw over Christmas, Spotify took down 750,000 people's songs because they were suspected for having bot streams, right?
Wow,
so,
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so if you're getting illegitimate streams, Spotify actually penalizes you for that, and they penalize those playlists, rightfully so.
Right.
And you'll never make it on a Spotify editorial if you're getting fake streams. So when we made it on Fresh Finds, which is an editorial playlist by Spotify, that was really good validation for us, because we knew, okay, all of our stats are legitimate. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten on this playlist. So it's sort of like a double-edged sword, where it's like you want to get on as many playlists as possible, but they have to be legit ones, because if they're not, you could really shoot yourself in the foot. So people who go and pay for guaranteed placement on a playlist or something like that, you end up shooting yourself in the foot, because then you get penalized on the back end. So it's like it's a really tricky place to navigate, especially right now.
Right. Yeah. So, and you said you have 150,000 streams. I'm old school. I'm in my late 30s. I grew up, at one point with cassettes and then CDs. So, what does that number mean to you? Because I know what it is to sell. We sold 1 million records. Like, what is the streams? What does that mean to you? How does that translate into, fans, money, things like that?
Yeah. Well, money about zero. I think it's like 0.3 of a penny, I think, per stream, if I'm right. So money is about zero. Fans. Yeah. It depends, right? Because it's like 150,000 streams is good for establishing credibility as a brand new, project. But if you do nothing with it, nothing comes of it. It doesn't just keep growing. It's not like people are knocking on our door to sign us. Like, we got 2 publishing offers, like, to get signed for publishing deals that we ultimately didn't sign. So there was some traction, and certainly, like, you get some credibility. And we were able to get on, like, Spotify Fresh Finds because of the momentum and stuff like that. So that was great. In terms of everything else, if you have 10,000 high quality streams versus 150,000, it really is no difference, because it's all going to depend on who actually pays money for you to see you at a show, or who actually goes to your website and buys your merch, because streaming alone isn't going to pay the bills. So I know people who have 10,000 streams on their top song who can actually blow me out of the water in terms of financial viability as a career, because they also have, like, 50% of those 10,000 people are willing to go to their shows and buy merch. So It's a matter of how can you convert those streams into people that are genuine fans. And so for us, like what my plan was get the fire going, build the fire up, and now start turning these people into to long-term, believers in the project. So that's kind of been the focus recently.
And how do you plan on doing that without being able to physically play in front of them?
That's the hard part. And I mean, that's why we're trying to get creative, like with the phone number thing, and trying to film. Like for me, the way that we plan out content, because I was never a social media person. In fact, before I put together Telco, I wasn't even on social media because I just didn't like it and I was terrible at it.
I noticed that 'cause I tried finding you and I'm like, this kid doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah, I know. I was worried that you thought I was like a sketchy person because I just came out of the blue and was like, hey.
Dude, you really did. Like, it came out of nowhere. Yeah. I'm like, but the music's really good. Like, obviously this is not, but then I'm like, okay. So then when I kind of found you and I saw you, like you were in New York, but you were still here. And I think I even messaged you saying like, it almost got to the point where I was like, this music's really good. I'm not sure it's even from here. Like that's
right.
Honest to God, I was just like, it wasn't like I didn't believe you. It was one of those things where I'm like, this. And I find myself saying this a lot. The music that comes out of this area is so good sometimes. It's like, I can't believe it comes out of here. So it was one of those moments where I'm like, maybe this kid is not, maybe he's not from here. Maybe he's just trying to get some radio play so that not that I have like this amazing show that's going to do anything for you, but people have told me that, if you get on radio, you can put that in your EPK, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, no, he does exist. He's from here.
Yeah. I grew up in West Scranton my whole life. I went to West Scranton High School. Like I went to the University of Scranton, so I was even here an extra 4 years. And then what I didn't realize was that I didn't realize I was a private person until I met people who weren't private people and kind of put their stuff everywhere and put their face everywhere. I'm also horrifically unphotogenic to anybody who knows me. Like I come off as unintelligent in photos. I can't fix it. So I like have a aversion to taking pictures of myself. So I kind of became a bit more private. And so I was actually off social media at the time that I was putting Telco out there. And so when I was like, okay, I'm going to come back into the social media world, we're going to start pushing this. Like, what kind of content do I want to be putting out? Do I want to be posting 5 times a day? Do I want to be posting once a week? Like, how does that look? Because obviously with the algorithms and stuff like that, you have to be churning out content if you want to get, pushed by the Instagram algorithm. And so we were like, we wanted to put out high quality content less frequently. So for example, like the Say Hello music video, right? That was something that took forever to get made and created. And it took a lot of like creative work to get sort of finished, but we thought that was a really high quality piece of content. Instead of just filming some, indie music video for myself, we wanted to create something really high quality, but then we won't put out a music video for this new single because we just can't do that for every single one. So it was a little bit different than like, we went quality over quantity, which honestly may not be the best decision sometimes with the way that social media sort of rewards consistency. But I just don't like putting out stuff just to put out stuff,
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough spot because like you're saying, the more content, the better, but also it's, you don't want garbage,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
It was funny when I asked you to do one of those videos for me, saying you were part of the Popco project. I'm like, I wonder if we'll actually do one because I had that vibe. Like maybe he doesn't want to be seen.
So funny. I dreaded that for forever. And then
you could have told me no. Right? You could have told me no.
You were the guy who put me on the radio. I was not going to say no. I was like, and then like a week before you asked me to do that, my dad gave me a quarantine haircut, which he's been giving me since this all went down. So I had like a buzzed head and I was sitting there and I'm like trying to find a good angle. And I just looked like a chimpanzee and I was like, I'm just going to send it to him because I don't want to look at this anymore. But no, I was happy to do it.
Oh, it's funny. That's really funny. Yeah. But I thought maybe he won't do it because maybe he's trying to be secret. Maybe he's trying to be like the gorillas and he just has this like,
I felt it. I was like, I was like, yeah, I'm really glad that he's playing my music, but I definitely think he thinks I'm sketchy or I'm not who I say I am, or I'm like secretly living in New York or something like that. But you can ask anybody. I mean, I worked at Ale Mary's downtown like for
I
three
believe you, man. I
years.
believe you.
You know, I'm the real deal. I'm a Scrantonian.
Yeah.
It's just funny.
It's one of those things where it's like, all right, if you're not on social media, what are you trying to hide?
Isn't that so weird?
Yeah, I
You'd think
know.
it'd be like it's crazy that we think that way now, where it's like if someone's on not on social media, I don't trust them,
Yeah, it's
even
weird.
though everybody on social media lies about themselves anyway.
Right?
You know, so it's like I honestly, the people who are off social media tend to be the more authentic ones, but I just don't trust them.
Yeah.
Funny.
Well, how am I supposed to creep on you if you don't have social
Yeah.
media? You know, jeez.
Right. I know it's crazy.
Especially now when you can't go anywhere.
Yeah. What else are you supposed to? I know. I'm getting obsessed now with. I said that to my fiance. I was like, I need to lock up my phone for a couple hours a day or something.
Yeah.
Especially with the problem is with music now. I'm so want to succeed as a musician that I'm on my Instagram, like interacting, engaging, trying to do everything constantly. And I feel like if I put my phone away, I'm hurting my chances at making as a musician. So it's even more of an incentive to grab my phone, which is already addicting as it is.
Right.
But it's driving me nuts.
Well, let's kind of go there. You were working as a trader in Jersey, but in New York, right? So it sounds like you had a great job, right? Financial security, all that kind of stuff. And one day you're just like, no, this is not for me. And I want to do music full time.
Yeah. So I knew in the back of my head that this was always going to be, that this was always the plan, that I was not going to stay there. I just didn't really tell anybody because no one was going to believe me because I didn't have any music out there and they never heard me sing. And my parents to this day still haven't like seen me sing live or anything like that. So telling them that I was going to leave this amazing job was not going to fly. But for me, I always knew it was the plan. So the way it worked as a trader was you would get bonuses at the end of the year, depending on how well you did. And so I just kept banking my bonuses and just putting them away and being like, this is my record deal. This is essentially what's going to fund me to quit my job. And I would call my parents every single day and I was like, I'm done. I'm quitting. I hate it. I just want to do music. And they were like, just wait it out. Get a little more money, like tuck a little more away. And then I was like, when 2020 bonus cycle came around at the end of 2019, I was like, that's it. I'm quitting. I'm going to be done. So we got paid in February or whatever. And then coronavirus hit. And I was like, I was already in quit mode. Like I already said, I was quitting. My parents knew. I just hadn't told anybody. And my parents were like, you can't quit now. There's a pandemic. And like everything is in upheaval. Like it was in the midst of everything going on. They were like, you cannot quit your job. And I was like, I'm not staying. I refuse. Like I knew if I didn't quit then I was never going to do it. And so in March, I called my bosses and it was like in the middle of everything that was going down. And I was like, yeah, I'm quitting to do music. And they were like, what are you talking about? We didn't even know you did music. And I was like, yeah, I've been like writing music in my free time when I'm not at work. Like I'm out of here. And they were surprisingly really amazing with it. And then I just moved back to Scranton and I moved back to my parents' house. And I went from being like a hotshot trader on Wall Street to living back in Scranton at my parents' house and making this EP out of their basement. And it was the happiest I had ever been, like being out of there because I was finally doing what I wanted to do. But I knew if I didn't do it at that time, there was going to be too much momentum, you know?
Yeah. I love hearing stories like that. And, I hope the best for you. And you've obviously have a well thought out plan and you're not just kind of like, quitting your job without a plan. I have a good friend of mine and we just recently reconnected over the past year, I guess. And he was in finance, New York City. And one day he just quit, and he's got a wife and a kid. And, I've never been, I don't know if I'm just too scared or I just don't believe in myself. But I've never like set that kind of goal and that had that kind of plan in my life ever. But but yeah, I see people like you, and I just have so much respect for that and admiration, because not everyone can do that. There's a lot of people who are scared and they want to make sure they have that, financial stability, and, they'll sit in their cubicle from 9 to 5 for their entire lives and
Yeah.
never take a risk. So I always think it's really cool to see when people do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I knew I was going to be miserable. Like I said, the people I worked with, they were the richest, most miserable people. You know what I mean? Like they had the most money of anybody I knew, but so many of them, not all of them, a ton of people were great, great people, but a lot of them were just miserable. I mean, they were commuting an hour and a half to work. Then they were working 13-hour days. Then they were commuting an hour and a half home.
Yeah.
And yeah, you have a big house and you've got, a nice car and you got all this stuff, but they were miserable. And I refused to kind of get sucked into that. And when you're getting paid that well at such a young age, you come this close to just being like, oh, screw it. I'm going to stick with this. And I just refused to ever let myself get in that headspace. It was like, I pretended like it was never mine to have in the first place. So giving it up wasn't that easy, or wasn't that hard, rather, right. Because I never really accepted it for what it was. And so giving it up was not that hard. But it's tough to get out of. But I knew if I look back at, 40 and thought I never gave it a proper shot, I would be miserable. So yeah, I just did it. And sometimes I look back and I never ever regretted it, but sometimes it's fun to think about what kind of life you could have had if you stayed.
Yeah, I mean, you could always go back though, couldn't you?
I guess it's never even popped in my head though, because I'm so much happier doing what I'm doing now.
All right, then let's not talk about it.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
No, perfect.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, good for you. I mean, there's a lot of people, like I said, that just can't even fathom that. So, it's funny too, because like it's not funny, but like you have this, like, again, this well thought out plan, and you want to execute it. And I think today, in order to make it as a musician, like you have to have all that. And it's completely different today than it was like 20, 30 years ago, where, rock stars, made music and, played shows and got drunk and all that kind of stuff. Now it's like, it's a business, and it's not only like, you have people to take care of the business side of things. Like a lot of the bands are also taking on that business role too.
Yeah. And that was the thing we realized was like, you're an entrepreneur when you start a music career. Like, and that's the thing is like back in the old days, you used to be talented. You used to have a great voice, or if you were a virtuoso on the guitar, right, you get signed to these record deals and they would foster your talent from that point forward. Nowadays, they just want to dump gasoline on the fire. And so you have to have everything set up right from the start. You have to have your marketing. You have to have the streams. You have to have fans. You have to have a database. Like we're putting together a database of emails and, where our fans are located and stuff. Like you can't afford to be the unorganized creative anymore. You have to be a small business owner. And it's hard because it forces you to be in a lot of things you're not good at. Like for me, I want to focus on creating music, and I find myself on, Instagram or, my email manager all the time. But it's something that you have to do if you want to break out of, as much as I love Scranton and this area, it's like I want to break out of the local scene and I want to become something that, where I could tour the country or something like that. And to do that, you got to get your stuff out there, and that's hard to do if you're not organized.
Yeah. Well, I won't keep it too much longer. I want to make sure this is under an hour, so that way we could share it on Instagram, because if it's over an hour, from what I understand, you can't share it.
Oh, totally.
So I want to be able to have it for you for all platforms.
59 minutes.
But I mean, I saw you're doing on next Monday, January 18th, I believe it is, like a live acoustic set or version of the new song.
Yeah, it's already filmed, so it's just going to be a live version, okay. Like a acoustic live version of the new single. And we filmed it with a really good videographer named Chris at the Barbershop Studios. And so that's just going to be coming out on Monday, just to support the new single, which came out last Friday, just a couple of days ago. And then down the road, we're actually going to have another video that we have shot already, which is going to be a whole production breakdown of -9, the new song, and stuff like that. So some more stuff coming out down the road too.
Cool. And you released the EP, and then you've already followed it up. Well, I guess it feels like yesterday. I guess it's 4 months ago.
It's flying. It's crazy.
What's the plan as far as releases in 2021?
Yeah, so we put the EP out. So technically, I still consider this part of like the EP era. Like I'm still going to be promoting the EP. The new single is supposed to be a little bit of a shift in direction sonically, right? Like it's much more bright and open than the EP was. And some of our artwork and things like that have changed a bit, sort of in correlation with this new sort of vibe. And now we're going to kind of just sit back, and now we're going to focus on trying to get things in motion for when the world reopens again, and hopefully we can go out and play some live shows. So I think I'm going to be in the studio again, I think in February. I think we're going to do a cover of a song, which I won't say yet, because I'm not sure we're going to stick with it. But that's going to be in February. But in terms of new music, it's going to probably be a bit, because we're going to focus on trying to get the EP and the new single out into the real world whenever we're allowed to do that. If I try and project 2021, who the freak knows? Because
yeah, I mean, I'm in sales and they ask for projections, and it's like, I have no idea.
You're kidding? Yeah, like have you seen what's happened?
Yeah, it's so up in the air. Only for a little while longer. I'm actually leaving Shamrock Radio at the end of this month. Yeah. Yeah, so I was offered a position with Axelrad Screen Printing, who is the company doing the shirts. Yeah, I mean, I've known the owner there, well, a couple of owners there since they started, and we've always talked about working together. And he's making some moves as far as expanding his business, and he's like, let's do this. And
congrats.
Yeah, it was cool because before I could never like make the move because for various reasons, whatever. But now like it's weird because had he come to me and I still had the show on the radio, the show that I didn't get paid to do, I probably would have been like, I don't know, like I'm happy with what I'm doing, even though that was not my primary job. But everything kind of happened where, the show got put on hiatus, in November, and he called me in November, I guess it was, or maybe December, and said, hey, let's do this. And I was like, well, maybe this is a sign. And thankfully I still have this. So I was like, all right, well, this is great. I can work there. I can still do this and stay connected to the local scene. And, once things kind of get back to, normal, I don't think there ever will be a normal, but, I kind of want to try and host shows under this whole umbrella, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. And that's sort of the whole thing. It's like, you gotta move while you have the opportunity to, because otherwise you get stuck in this place of sort of being comfortable and sort of being miserable. And for me, it was similar, where it's like, I try and keep as many balls in the air as possible, because then it allows me to move when I need to, because as soon as you get the slightest bit comfortable, it becomes so hard to move.
Yeah. And I think that's what was happening. And even, the pandemic in general kind of threw a wrench into that, because like I was making really good money. I had the radio show going, and, I had a financial setback, last year, and things aren't looking much better. And this opportunity came across my lap basically. And I was like, I can't not take this. This will never come back around if I ever said no to this. I'm pumped. I mean, those guys there and girls, the team is amazing. They just get shit done. It's crazy, and they have fun doing it, it seems. So
that's great. Yeah, and they've been great to us too. So I'm a huge fan of them. I mean, doing the whole shirts thing for us was amazing. So and everything you did too with Alt Natives was amazing. And I love that radio station. That's what I grew up listening to. So it's a bummer to see all that go down. But things change, and new good things come from it, and like this podcast,
Yeah, we'll just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
word of 2020 was pivot. I started hating that
Right.
word.
I know.
Everyone was
That's
pivoting.
I I said that I was talking to my fiance. I quit my job, moved home, got engaged all in the same year. And it was like on top of that, it was already a crazy year to begin with. So I was like, it's too much. I want to chill out a little bit. 'Cause last year was crazy, but I feel like in those situations, if you could pivot quickly, you actually end up being happier because you're staying on the cutting edge of things. It's when you start to put the brakes on that you get miserable.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Absolutely right. When do you get married?
A year, about a year from now, it's January 8th, 2021. Um, yeah, I quit and I don't know. I guess I was this impulsive year. I quit and got engaged and
Hey, man.
everything's changed and I'm the happiest I've been in a very long time. So it's all good.
You know what? One thing someone told me, or probably many people told me that I never really paid attention to. Well, maybe I have. I don't know. But you're only young once, and take the risks when you're young because that's when you can. If you fail for whatever reason, you could figure it out. But you can't be 50 years old with a wife and kids and a house, and God forbid you fail and you fail your family. So take the risk now.
I had that conversation with my parents every day. They were like, "Why don't you give it 5 years, save some money?" I was like, would you rather me be quitting my job when I've got a kid on the way or I'm married and I've got a house? Like it's never going to happen. If I don't do it
Right.
now, it's never going to happen.
No, you're right.
So
Because that's what happens. I mean, you grow up and then you start living, with a certain paycheck, and you buy nice things, and you become accustomed to that lifestyle, and you can't go backwards at that point.
mm-hmm.
And you had kids and stuff. It's just like, we have a little one.
And you're responsible.
What's that?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I was going to say you're responsible to other people other than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So good for you, man. I'm proud of you. I look forward to seeing what telco does next, and however I can be a help to you, please by all means reach out to me. Let me know. I will do whatever I can.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully,
thank you for supporting from the start.
Absolutely.
That was amazing. And best memory was sitting in the car listening to Alt Natives, and I had like 5 beers in me at the time, and we were running in and out of the house trying to refill a beer before the next song came on. So it was huge. It was a big moment for us. So thank you.
That's again, I did that show. I didn't get paid for it. But when that got put on hiatus, like I really, it was a show on a Saturday night on a local radio station in northeastern Pennsylvania, Scranton, PA. I wasn't setting the world on fire, but I'll tell you what, man, doing that show gave me a sense of purpose, and it's hearing things like what you just said. It's, anyone could put their stuff on Spotify too, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm an idiot and I have a podcast that's on Spotify,
Yeah. I'm not an idiot.
But no, I mean, like, I feel like with radio, I mean, people like, do people still get excited about that, hearing their song on the radio? I said, yeah, I mean, because they, someone had to hear it and decide, it was good enough to be on the radio. And not that like I'm anybody at all, but I mean, you had to reach out and I had to listen to it. And, not that I'm Simon Cowell, but from American Idol, but it was good. So it's like, let's play it, and that's kind of what, that's what it was meant for. It wasn't meant to kind of, it was meant to be a support for the local artists 100%. So,
and I pulled my phone out that night and you would have thought I got elected president with like the amount of texts that I had that night from that night you had like 30 of my closest friends and family all sitting like at the radio listening to it. So like, it was cool. So I appreciate it. And I'm glad that you're keeping going with the podcast because it's great for artists like us who are just like trying to get, a little bit of press and a little bit of our word out there. So I appreciate it more than you know.
Absolutely. It really is my pleasure. And for those of people listening, where can they find you?
Telco. Yeah, best place is, if you want the music, is Spotify. It's just Telco. It's lowercase TELCO. There's a capital TELCO out there. They haven't released music since 2013, so don't look at them. Come look for us. And then the other place to find us best place to find me is Instagram, which is at telco_music. And my phone number's on there. So shoot me a text, I guess.
Call, text them. Yeah, do whatever you want. Well, man,
yeah,
it was
whatever you want. Yeah. Say hi.
It was a pleasure talking with you. I mean, it's such a pleasure, talking like this than it is, just typing, via email or Instagram. Because, like I said before, I thought you were just some phony from New York.
Yeah, right. That's great. Yeah, it's so nice to prove my legitimacy.
I'm kidding.
I love it.
But yeah, so thanks for doing this. It was a pleasure for me to talk to you, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.
Yeah, great meeting you as well, and thanks again for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it, man. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, see ya.